Absolute bedlam. Absolute bedlam. Absolute bedlam. Talking about topics and stuff. Absolute bedlam. Absolute bedlam. Absolute Bedlam podcast. Who? What? Where? Why?
Dorset, England's gateway to the sea. Legends tell of how travellers and wayfarers would navigate vast oceans to meet the natural beauty of the Jurassic coastline. As the centuries have passed, only their song remains. Absolute Bedlam are proud to be sponsored by Shanty Spirit, the taste of the Jurassic Coast.
Good evening and welcome to quite a special edition of Absolute Bedlam podcast. I haven't interviewed a children's author before, but I'm a bit of a versatile fellow these days, and it's nice to be able to interview musicians and bands until the sun explodes, but sometimes you need a bit of variety. So I've got Sian, I hope I pronounced that correctly.
That's perfect, Ben.
Lewin, who is a children's author who has written lots of books. We've got The Adventures of Alfie and Pepper, and we've got, you have to help me with this one, Something in the Mobile.
Mamie, that's my grandma name.
Cool.
Yes, I have five grandchildren, and I'm Mamie.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to be grandma, but I'm a Mamie.
Yeah. And I think we met on LinkedIn or Instagram.
Yes.
One of them.
Yes, I think both actually. Yes, yeah, one of them, yeah.
And you're very kind in sending me all of these books, which is going to be the focal point of this episode. And yeah, you've sent me a handwritten note saying thank you for giving me an opportunity to promote my books, and I hope you enjoy them. And it's all just a bit mental, really. Sometimes I get sponsorships from people and they send me like one can of something, and I'm like, oh, I'll try my best to promote that. But you've gone all out, Sian, and I appreciate it. So, yeah.
That's a pleasure. I just want to spread the great thing of reading, which so many children are in front of, mobile phones or iPads or whatever. And for me, as a child, there's nothing like reading a book and getting into that whole imagination that's in the book, and it takes you to a whole different place. Mm-hmm. So that's why I also have 5 grandchildren plus 4 step-grandchildren as well. So it's nice to be able to, tell them stories as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. We'll get into the books in a second, but we always start with the same question, which was, how did you find school?
Well, school for me, because I, as a child, my father was in the army, so we travelled a lot. And I'll tell you, I first started school when I was 5 in Singapore, and I used to be picked up by a Land Rover from our house. We lived on an island called Blackamati, which means Black Death. It's actually now called Sentosa, and is a holiday island. So obviously Blackamati wouldn't be a great holiday name. Yeah. And I was driven down by the Land Rover down to a harbour, and I used to then get on a little boat to go over to my school, which was on a different island. I mean, no life jacket, nothing. So you can imagine that these days they'd freak out and there'd be health and safety all over it. But that's what happened for about 18 months. And then I moved around quite a bit. And my parents felt when I was about 10, they needed to send me to boarding school. So my first boarding school was in Belgium. And I went there for a year, very strict Roman Catholic convent. Although my dad was an Anglican padre. And then I went to school in Sussex for the next 6 years. I wasn't the best student. I was quite naughty. Used to do things that probably we shouldn't do, but I did it. But so I stayed there till I was 16.
Yeah, sounds like a bit of a turbulent, sort of tumultuous time, really. You might not have known where you
It,
were going to go the next day.
Well, no, because we moved every 18 months. And so you had to make friends really, really quickly when you
Yeah.
went to a new posting that we had in the army. So when you were at a school for 5 or 6 years, and you obviously went home in holidays and stuff like that. But because my parents were abroad, I used to go to friends at half term and things. And I think being at boarding school makes you very independent as well. And you go from such a young age as 10. I mean, I used to have to fly to different places around the world. So it does make you quite independent. But I had quite a fertile imagination from a youngster.
Mm.
And as I said, I used to read a lot as a child.
Mm.
And that's where my love of books came from, really. But
Yeah.
school, yeah, school, I just wanted to get on. I actually wanted to be an actress from the age of 5. And when I mentioned that to the careers officer at school, you can imagine in a girls' convent school in Sussex, and they've got all the sort of teacher, doctor, nurse, whatever written down. And I said, I want to be an actress. And they can't find that on here. And so it was like, okay. And that was my wish at that time.
I think sometimes when you're given a hard limit and a hard set of restrictions, you can kind of circumvent them and find your way past them rather than, I want to be an astronaut, I want to be a race
Yeah,
car driver. What about someone
yeah.
that collects the bins, the real stuff?
Well,
I don't imagine there's many kids that
exactly.
want to do that, but someone's got to do it. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think my son once said that actually, because he said, we never learn about being a water engineer or anything like that, that sort of keeps us all going, really.
Mm.
And at school, you do have those parameters that you are almost forced into, and subjects as well. You're not, the diversity, certainly when I was young, the diversity of subjects isn't what it is now.
Yeah.
I mean, everything like drama and stuff we had to do out of school hours and things like that. Now it's sort of part of a curriculum.
Yeah.
But yeah, school. I'm still in touch with about 6 or 7 girls from my boarding school. So yeah,
That's good.
I was a bit naughty. I wasn't one of the naughtiest, but
All right. So on that, what's the naughtiest thing you or one of your friends did at school, and did you get caught?
I'll tell you about 2. One I got caught, one I didn't. We used to be very naughty, and don't do this if you're under 18. We used to be very naughty when we were about 15. We used to hitch. And bearing in mind, this was probably about 1974, 75. And we once thought we'd actually hitched up to London, but I think we were in Sutton or somewhere. So we were on the outskirts of London. I think we thought, and we got a lift with a lorry driver. And we had a few things like that, but we never ever got caught. Because basically the nuns, as long as they saw you at breakfast and they saw you at tea time, they didn't really worry too much where you were during the day. And then when I got to the age of sort of 15, 16, just before I left, we met some lads from the local town, and we did get caught there and got reprimanded. I think I was sent home for 3 weeks. So yes, that's probably the naughtiest thing.
Fair enough. Fair enough. There's no stopping you, is there? Once there's an opportunity,
yeah, but
you grab it.
Well, it is when you're all girls together, and
yeah,
it's. I mean, I was fortunate; I had a brother, so I was familiar with the opposite sex at the time in the 1970s. Yeah. It was all very, very different now, but yeah, those are the 2 things. Yeah, but so don't hitch anybody. People used to hitch all the time in the 70s.
Yeah, it's just a story, not a recommendation. People, calm down. We'll go into the deep stuff first, because I think that kind of paints a bit of a picture for why you've gotten so deep into the books, and everything's quite nice, and a bit of escapism I get when I read your books. But you had a bit of a health scare early on. Did you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I'm happy to talk about it, because I think it also helps people. Yeah, in 2012, I mean, I'm sure you're quite happy with me to talk about. I'm at that sort of age where in 2012 it was sort of menopause time, and at that time I knew there was something wrong with me, but I didn't know what it was. And I was very tired at work, But the only thing that made me think it wasn't the menopause is because I was breathless. I used to walk out on site where I worked, and by the time I'd gone 100 meters, I was literally out of breath. So I managed to get an appointment with a nurse. I couldn't actually get into a doctor. And she said, let's do a blood test. So I went, okay, yeah, that's fine. And within 24 hours, I got a phone call and they said, we need more blood. Everything on the screen's gone, woohoo, you know. So I gave more blood, and then I had a bone marrow test, and I have a very rare leukemia called hairy cell leukemia. And one of the things that happens to you, it's called hairy cell leukemia because each cell, when it sort of goes into it off on a tangent, it grows these long tresses. And when it was discovered in 1959, the scientists thought they looked like hair coming out of the cell. So she called it hairy cell leukemia. And so basically it's a chronic leukemia. But because mine had probably been with me for 2 years, they reckon, they immediately gave me chemotherapy, and I had it for a week. And they did say to me, the cancer won't kill you, but what we're about to do to you might kill you. And I'm like, okay, what's that then? Yeah. And the chemotherapy actually killed all my white blood cells. And so for 8 weeks, I had to follow a special diet, couldn't have brie, couldn't have a Mr. Whippy of all things, which is why I actually put Mr. Whippy into one of my books. So at the end of the 8 weeks, so you have no immune system. So you have to be careful you don't pick up a cold or anything like that. And I actually did. I picked up, I think a bug bit me because I had a little spot on here. And the next day, my temperature rocketed and I was rushed in. And I actually had sepsis, but they caught it really quickly. Then after that, I've recovered, and I go every 6 months now. But if anyone out there, and it is important because it's very rare, we have very little, about 25 women a year in Britain get it. So it is a rare cancer. It's more in men. But if you're tired and you're breathless, because the reason why is all the cells go into the spleen, and your spleen rests on your lungs. So if you are feeling breathless, tired, and sweats as well, that was the other thing. So it is unusual. And fortunately, I didn't lose my hair or anything like that. The chemo didn't do that to me. But I'm in remission. I've been 12 years in remission now, so all good, which is fabulous.
Wow. Yeah, it's quite a story. I imagine that gives you a sense of perspective. Yeah, go on.
It does. And in 2012, because obviously I'm sitting there for weeks on end, excuse me, and, there's only so many box sets you can watch. I did watch Desperate Housewives for a second time. So I just looked around the room and I wrote the very first Alfie and Pepper story as I sat there, because my dogs were still alive then, because the stories are based on 2 real dogs. And so I wrote the first one, which actually, strange enough, I haven't printed yet. It's going to be hopefully printed next year. Other ones have come in. And I just stuck it in a drawer. And then that's when, fast forward to the pandemic, I just left my corporate world and I wanted to return to writing and potentially acting, because I'd originally gone to drama school for 3 years. And obviously, as I said earlier, when I was a child and going into adulthood, I desperately wanted to be an actress. So my consultant rang me up and he said, you mustn't leave the house. This was on March the 1st, just before everybody. So I thought, God, what am I going to do? So I got that original story out. And for the next few weeks, I wrote an additional 8 stories. And in this little studio I have here, I recorded them all and gave the dogs their voices. Pepper's a Welsh Border Collie, so I I can do quite a few accents and things. Yeah. And that's when I started it. And that was how Alfie and Pepper they already existed. They are sadly no longer with me by the time I wrote them in lockdown. But it gave me a sense of purpose because I couldn't work. And I had fun creating the stories and then recording them and things. So yeah, that's how it's all started.
Amazing. And the fact that you've written about your dogs, even though they've kind of gone from the world, as it were, and they're at the Rainbow Bridge, it's immortalized them in the stories. So yeah, that's kind of a question I was going to ask you a little bit later on, but it seems like a right time to
Yeah,
ask it
yeah,
now.
sorry. Yeah.
No, that's all right. Um, was it cathartic at all writing these books at times because you put a lot of yourself into the books? And you mentioned Mr. Whippy earlier. You know, you've mentioned your
Yes.
pets, you've mentioned potentially family members, you've um, given a remembrance for the Village Fate one. You know, it's dedicated to someone.
Yes.
Does it feel a bit like
Yeah,
when you're done writing them, you know?
it does. And each book I have dedicated to people that I love in my life. And the Fate one, as you said, was my brother who sadly died 2 years ago. And all my family, my birth family, have now gone.
Mm.
The first one was dedicated to my husband, and I call him the string to my balloon. So he was the first one I dedicated it to. And each one has had a dedication, either my children, my grandchildren, friends, people that have been really important in my life. But what I wanted to give with Alfie and Pepper, I know lots of people are writing at the moment, but all you can do for me is write from the heart. And what I wanted to create was a calming bedtime story. It wasn't we were shooting off to the moon, we were doing this, we were doing that. It was Alfie and Pepper waking up. They were doing a nice little adventure that quite often Alfie and Pepper had actually done. So in the Village Fate, Alfie had actually been in a terrier race and he did win it.
Yeah.
We took them to the seaside. So they have done a lot of the stories, and also they're things that children can do without too much expense. They can have a little picnic
Yeah.
and all of those things. I mean, a narrowboat might be more expensive, but most of them, the kids can go to the seaside and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And each one has a little life lesson. So the seaside one is understanding the importance of, learning to swim. And
Yeah.
Alfie gets knocked over by a wave, and each one has one of those. And then once they've had their adventure, they get into bed. And I usually say something like, before you can say fluffy rabbits, Alfie and Pepper were fast asleep. So it's
Yeah.
a little bit of a story. And then, right, we're going to settle down now. And that to me, for kids, is understanding how important being nice, safe, and warm in bed is, with a nice story and just calming. And that's why I ended up recording them. And I've actually had them filmed by some guys here in Nottingham. And
Yeah.
they've done a brilliant job.
Yeah. Sounds like you've gone all out. Yeah, it's great.
It
Love it.
has, and I'm totally self-funded. The reason why, Ben, I've actually self-published is if you look on my website, or if you
Yeah.
look in, I've got one of the books I've actually done as a hardback. Is this actually going to be seen? Or is it
Yeah, go for
verbal?
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, same. Yeah.
Is in on my website there are real pictures of the dogs, and in one of my books I've got real pictures there.
Yeah.
And I didn't want them to look like Disney creatures. They were my real animals.
Yeah.
So I wanted them to look like Alfie and Pepper, not some strange creation. And Alex Robbins, who illustrates my stories, he absolutely got it immediately. He knew what I wanted. And I've worked with him on this series and my new series as well. So thrilled. I'm really thrilled with his work. He's very, very creative guy.
Yeah. We'll get onto Alex in a bit because I think that's super,
Of
super
course.
important. Because
Yeah.
I used to be a massive fan of Roald Dahl, and Enid Blyton seemed like the perfect illustrator for Roald. I don't know if this will show up on the screen. I might need you as a backup, but I'm looking at the Fate one, and just look at that rich
that
color of like.
Yeah.
I just think it's fantastic. I had to make a note of that page number because
Yeah. No, that's the one there in case it was. Yeah.
pops off.
There's a balloon. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
we went a bit wild on this one because they all have, so children can identify. But this one we did go with the Fate color, but the rest of them are more like the ones all sort of primary colors.
Yeah. Solid. Yeah.
Kids can identify the range of, the series of books.
Yeah. So, how did you meet Alex Robbins?
Well, just before when I wrote the first one, I had two different illustrators, and each one went 6 weeks. Quite get Alfie and Pepper, so we kind of parted ways, and amicably. And then I put a note out on our village Facebook, and his wife has friends in our village. They don't live in our village. And obviously somebody must have sent my little message out. I mean, I got 6 replies, actually. It was really surprised me from a small village. But they were the first to reply. And it was, I think it was at the end of COVID, and we were sort of meeting, but outside. So we had a long chat, like, you know, like we are on a video call.
Yeah.
And then I said what I wanted, and I'm quite sort of not too strong because I like to give him some sort of poetic license in his drawings. But he we did end up meeting, actually, and we had to go to a park and sit sort of feet apart or whatever it was. And I just went through, and the first few drawings I said that's exactly what I want. And his wife's been a little bit involved, especially on the new series as well. So that's how I met him, just on a Facebook.
Mental, isn't it? How quickly these things can gather traction if they meet so organically. Yeah. Awesome stuff. Just checking you can still hear me.
Yeah, I can still hear you. Yeah.
Sweet. So just quickly, because
excuse if you can hear any noise. My Patterdale Terrier's chasing up and down the hallway.
It's all good.
Trying to get in on the act.
That's all right. I have a habit of forgetting like the essentials when I'm recording. So the website is www.theadventuresofalfieandpepper.com. Do we have a website for the new book?
Not for the new book at the moment. Okay. They are on the adventures. They're at the beginning of it, so it just tells you a little bit about it. And the new book, I mean, do you want me to talk about that now?
Absolutely. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. Well, Mamie in the Mobile came about. My daughter lives in Australia, and we went to see her literally just before COVID, because I think came back with COVID from Australia. And we were, I think it was, yes. So we didn't see her then from the time we saw her for 2.5 years because of COVID. And so I went out as soon as I could 2.5 years later. And during COVID, she got pregnant, had my granddaughter. So I'd never seen her pregnant, never seen my granddaughter other than on video calls. So 2.5 years later, I arrived in Australia, and my son-in-law was filming it, me arriving, obviously very tearful. I'll have to send you the video. And she looked a bit scared because obviously she'd seen me on video before. And I just touched her arm and I said, "It's me. It's Mamie from the Mobile." And as I said it, I thought, and it sort of germinated in my head on the trip. And I thought, that's a really good idea. Yeah. So the premise of Mamie in the Mobile is we talk through our mobile phones. So the first story sort of sets the scene. So Daisy's in her room and her mum says, "I'm just going to bath your sister. I'll be, back in a minute, but Mamie might ring." So Mamie rings, and we have a little chat, and Daisy's sitting there playing with her safari animals. So I said, "Oh, what are you doing?" And she said, "I'm playing with my safari animals." So that's the sort of story there. So and I said, "Oh, I went on safari." Again, a personal thing. I did go on safari when I was a little girl. We were living in the Middle East. And we went to, I say Kenya, but I know it's Kenya. It's just how I was brought up. And we did go on a safari. So I say to her, "Oh, well, I went." She said, "Oh, I'd love to go." And I said, "Well, if you close your eyes really tightly, hand on, we'll see what happens." And pow, we're suddenly in Africa. So, and we meet, the 4 animals are with us. So they're on the back of the book there. And so you learn a little bit about each animal as we go round. And then we get chased by an elephant, not giving too much away, which I did as a child. And then we're back in the room, and I'm working on the second book at the moment, which is given away in the first book because it's to do with dinosaurs. Because it's the strap line of it is imagination can take you anywhere, or imagination knows no bounds. So you can do anything. Yeah. And we have a magical car as well. So it's for me, it's about keeping in touch with your grandchildren. And when you're separated by thousands of miles, Thank goodness that we have this wonderful thing of video calls, because I see them most days. And that's what the book is about. It's being apart, but also together.
Yeah. And there's an educational sense to this one as well, because it mentions when giraffes are standing in a group, it's called a tower, and when a moving group of giraffes moves, it's called a journey. I didn't know that, and I'm
No, I didn't.
34.
Well, I'm a lot older than that. And also, which my favourite, a group of zebras is called a dazzle.
Dazzle, yeah.
Which I think is a brilliant name. And I learned that. I mean, I'm learning a lot because the next one is about dinosaurs.
Yeah.
I've actually bought my first T-Rex, which is downstairs on the dining room table.
Fantastic.
He's quite big. And I like those because when I went to Australia in February this year, I went to my granddaughter's daycare, and we did some readings of the book. And if you go and have a look on any of my social media things, and I'll send it to you as well, there's a picture of my granddaughter sitting there with her toy elephant, giraffe, and everything. And she's only 3, and she did a brilliant job. She was very proud sitting with Mamie. I was basically her show and tell for the day. So, so bring Grandma as your show and tell, or Mamie as I am.
Yeah. Just remember, if you are going out into the jungle with a phone, you need a good internet connection and you need a power bank, because that would be the worst. You go out into the wild with 20% battery,
Yeah, well, we have Lottie the magic car, which is a Morris Traveller, which is what I actually went in Kenya with. So it's a very special car. It probably has, internet in the car.
Yeah. Awesome. We've got about 10 minutes left, so we're going to tie this one up in a minute. But before that, I just want to ask you one more question, which is what specifically made you want to start writing for kids? What sort of gravitated that genre towards you instead of doing something like dark fantasy or self-help, or why children specifically?
I think children specifically is, as I said earlier, I have 5 grandchildren of my own, and quite often it's quite nice to read a story. And what's even better thing is to read your own story to them. I mean, I've made up stories for my kids when they were small and things like that. And it's a way of passing on a little bit of information to children. A lot of children don't even have books in their house. And I just wanted to go that route. There is an adult book in me, which I might get out one day. But at the moment, I love writing. And as we talked about Alfie and Pepper, it's keeping their memory alive for me, and having that sense of, I don't know, passing on, if you like, the memories from before in my books, and my children can see. And maybe in the mobile, it's the same. I will probably try and incorporate all my grandchildren eventually, one way or another, into the book, so that they have that legacy in the family of belonging. And that's probably why I got in. And also, I'm a bit scared of writing an adult book. It's huge, and I'm not saying a children's book is easy, because you've got quite a tough audience with children. And there's so many children's books on the market as well. So it's just trying to get in there. But for me, it's quite personal, my books. They have a little bit of me in most of them. So that's probably, that's why. And I had 2 dogs, and it's just, I like writing. If you listen to the YouTube videos, you will hear the characters of the dogs. And I've got a little 60-second promo that somebody did for me. And she actually got the dogs to move as well. She sort of took them apart, and that's my ultimate aim, is to get a cartoon of them, a realistic cartoon. When I say that, do videos, but they're astronomical to do at the moment.
Any animators hit Sean up if you're watching?
Do if you want to have a I mean, there are animators, but I've had quotes, and they are just beyond my budget at the moment. So I just think there'll be a nice story. Not everything has to be leaping off buildings, and children can have they do sometimes need that quiet time to just clear their heads and just get ready for bed, and they can go, or they can read along to it. As I say, all the books, the guys from Nottingham have filmed them all, so they've got the pictures, me reading, doing the voices and everything, so they can read along as well. I did actually send 30 of them to right at the beginning of the Ukraine conflict. They were doing Packed with Hope backpacks, and I sent 30 of my books, and I put my card in, and basic to say, if you're trying to learn English or whatever, if you don't speak English, you can read along to the book and hear the story being told to learn English. And also it tells you a little bit about English life as well.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, it's good to see people helping each other out in book form, and I imagine this is done quite well in schools, and like you said earlier, getting that attention from kids is so difficult. We live in a TikTok world where everything's 6 seconds and everything's refresh.
Instant, yeah.
And it's good to see kids like my son Casper still reads, and sometimes I'll put him to bed and he'll continue reading, and I'm like, who are you? like you want to continue reading? Some people see reading as a chore, you know. So, but yeah, it's fantastic.
Oh, it's not. No, I wish I had more time to read. I work part-time as a home carer since I left the corporate world, and I do loads with my books and things, and I've worked with young adults as well, who most of them probably had a reading age of about 5 or 6, and they loved it. We even went to a farm park. We had a picnic at a farm park, and we came along with all their families and things, and I read 2 of my stories, and then we went round to look at the animals, and one of them had written a story, and it was just a lovely. And I've had quite a few people like that. I've had an older lady who was in her 50s who had a reading age of 6, and her carer wrote to me. I had a lovely, as we were saying, about personal letter, and she said that the lady I look after loves your books because they're not too babyish, and because she only has a reading age of 6, so that was lovely too.
That's
so
cool.
It's nice to have children and other people that enjoy books as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, fantastic. We're going to go to a quick break. I've got a couple more questions for you. I'll even give you a chance to ask me a question if you want. But we'll get to that in a bit. We're going to do some goat adverts and some Shanty Spirit adverts. So thanks for watching and all that sort of stuff so far, guys. And stay tuned for part 2, okay? Cheers, Sean. Speak to you in a second.
Thanks very much.
Do you need that extra burst of energy? Do you need motivation? Do you need that X factor? Well, Goat Energy has you covered. Whatever gets your juices flowing. Whatever you need to let your hair down. Have a go at it all with Goat Energy. Gluten-free, vegan-friendly, and no artificial additives. Goat Energy. Use code BEDLAM10 at checkout.
Welcome back. So, question that I had written down from the start of us talking before we'd even put a date in the diary. How long does it take a book to print from you writing on paper with thoughts to me buying it from somewhere like Waterstones or buying it from your website? How long does that process take?
Well, most of my stories, obviously they're all written. All 9 of my stories are written. So from writing it to sending it to my editor, that will be a process of about 3 weeks. And then she'll send me, make sure I'm happy with everything. When I say send it, my illustrations will all be done. So they can take up to 8 weeks, my illustrations. So you obviously have to factor that in. So if we start at the beginning, I write the story. And as I say, they're all written. So let's say it takes a week. It doesn't take that long. A couple of days, I think. And then my illustrator takes up to about 8 weeks. So certainly with Alfie Pepper, they're all hand drawn, and then they're put onto a computer and then coloured in. So that's what's taken the time with Alfie and Pepper. So once we've got that, they then go off to the words, and the drawings go off to my editor, who is brilliant, and I'll give her a shout out. It's Fuzzy Flamingo and Jen Parker. She is really, really good editor.
Right.
And she's quite local to me. She's up in the Midlands, and she's brilliant, so understanding. And so Jen will have it. She's quite quick, actually. She normally, within a couple of weeks, she'll come back and she sort of checks my spelling, which needs checking, and any grammatical, things like that. And then she'll send me back, am I okay with that? And she does all the layout, set out and everything. And then once we're happy, we upload it. She uploads it onto Amazon and then Ingram Spark as well. Ingram Spark, for those that don't know, is they will supply. So if you went into Waterstones or any other book shop, and you just say, I'd like Alfie and Pepper, go on a narrowboat, please. So they'll look it up and they can order it. So it's then printed. The good thing about, and I know lots of people hate Amazon, but the one thing about Amazon and Ingram Spark, they are all printed in this country. So, or whatever country they're in, they're printed. So, yes and no, Amazon can be not the best place, but it's been a good platform for me. Every single book has got to #1 that I've released in the genres that Jen chooses. She's really good at finding genres that fit my books. And so we've managed to, I was very chuffed one day. I think I was between Marcus Rashford and David Williams for about 12 hours. So I was quite chuffed. I took a picture of it, and I'm not quite sure. Ben, don't even go there. And,
not saying anything.
So...
Yeah.
I'm a children's author. So yes. So I think at that point I was about #7. So yes. So quite an interesting Marcus Rashford and David Williams to be between. So but Jen's really, really good. So I would say probably somewhere between, the illustrations take the time, so that would probably hold it up. So I would say probably 12 weeks, maybe around that. But if you've got the illustrations and the text, then obviously it doesn't take that long. And because I'm self-published, because I wanted that control, but more than happy for any publisher to come along and help me, because obviously I'm self-funded. So it's it's a labor of love, but also it's I love it, and it saved me during lockdown. I can tell you, it really kept me going when I couldn't work, and I was at home and thinking, what am I going to do? And that's when I did start to write an adult book. I've sort of started it, but I keep backing off from it and doing my children's books. So that is, and I think I would say to anyone, because I meet a lot of people, and they say, I really want to write a book. Write it, even if you just get a notebook and just write down your thoughts. Or you hear a funny saying, or you see a funny situation, or you see a dramatic situation, or you think of something, write it down, because I'm sure you will not remember it. So, or if you wake up at night, have the book next to you and just write down, or you have a dream or something. Because when you put all those things together, for those that say, I really want to write a book, do it.
Yeah. Literally.
Because you'll regret it if you don't. And that's why I've loved it. And that's why I've self-financed, because I wanted to have some control over it. But I'm more than happy for someone to come and help if they want to. But it is good. It is good. And it's fun. And I've met so many, including yourself, lots of people online who also love books. I've got lots in different countries, and we support each other. We buy each other's books. So I've got quite a different array of books, some adult books, kids' books. They're not all children's authors that I sort of interact with. And whatever it's called, Twitter these days and things. I've met a lot of people on there as well that don't want to marry me. There are some people. I've had a few of those I've had to block on Instagram. And I said, no, I'm more than happily married, thank you. Block. It's strange. I don't know. It's a very
weird world
odd
out
thing.
there.
Very
Yeah.
weird, very weird. And to somebody who was brought up in the 70s, it is really weird. You know, when we used to go and put a 10p coin in a phone box, you know, you don't have these things to hand, you know,
Yeah,
with
yeah.
which has your life in it. So yeah, it's I'm glad I was brought up then, because I think it
Yeah,
makes you appreciate all you have now.
completely.
And I think it's sad, and that's why I wrote to you, because I do write. I don't always send emails or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think when you're, I mean, I'm very chuffed, and I will blow a little trumpet here. I've sent all of my books, including the latest one, at different times to. She's now the Princess of Wales, and I've had a reply to every single package I've sent. I think I've had 4 replies now. And I have to say, it is a little, whether you like the royal family or not, I was quite chuffed when I got this royal letter back and saying, thank you very much for your Alfie Pepper. So I don't think she saw it. I'm sure it was somebody in her team, but
Yeah.
it's just a nice little boost.
Absolutely. Keeps you going.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm currently
Yeah,
using
it
my
does.
phone as a notepad. So yeah, we're
Oh, have you got more
constantly
questions?
glued to the bloody things, aren't we? So I've not got this one written down. This might be a bit controversial, but you mentioned David
Okay.
Walliams earlier.
Yeah.
So when people like that write books, what do you think of that? Is it an opportunity for Tom Fletcher from McFly to cash in? Or is it all fair and love
I
and
wish he'd
war
stay
because
playing
people
music.
want to buy books and people want the imagination and they might want to see a different side to Tom or David? What do you think of that? Because they've already got a huge sort of
Yeah.
influence, you know?
There's a little part of me that thinks, you know, stick to comedy and acting and stick to your music and whatever, you know. But then on the other hand, you know, that they're successful people. Why wouldn't you? If you feel that you wanted to do
Yeah,
other things in your life, then that's
yeah,
fine. But it is hard, because I mean they have thousands and thousands of pounds behind them.
yeah,
I have a few thousand behind me, but that's I've literally poured them into my stories and my books and everything, you know, to get to a #1 on Amazon. It's not easy.
no,
And it's quite hard, but you know, we have got there, even though it's only for like 12 hours or something. I mean, they're there permanently.
mm,
Um, yeah, there's little part of me that just think, oh, come on, give us all a bit of a
mm,
break here, guys, or ladies. But you know, that's life, that's competition, isn't it?
yeah,
So we can't all reach the top of the pile
mhm,
necessarily. But you know, if I can give a few children, I've had lovely comments from children, especially in my village and things. You know, I was walking my dog one day, and amazingly, about how tall was he? He was about 4'11" Superman. No, he was Spider-Man, ran by me. And I went, oh, and he just kept running. And then his mum was there. And I think it's because my picture's on the back of the book. And she said, you're the author of Alfie and Pepper, aren't you? And I said, yes. I said, how did you know? And she said, I think it's your picture on the back of the book. And she said, oh, and her son had continued running. He was
yeah,
halfway across the field. And she said, oh, he'll be so frustrated. She was trying to call him back, but he just was going as Spider-Man.
yeah,
That's what
yeah,
he was dressed
yeah,
as they do. And she said he absolutely loves your books. And when you hear that, or me, that yours is the book she reaches for every night, and that's my hardback, which has got the first 5 stories in, and that's the book she takes to bed. So when
yeah,
you hear that, even if it's half a dozen kids, you just think, oh, great, you know.
mm,
So going back to your original question,
mm,
yeah, it'd be nice to have the backing they have, and that's the thing. If you had that promotional level, and you had an entree probably into, I don't know, HarperCollins or one of those, and had that sort of push and that exposure, because obviously I have a couple of thousand on Twitter.
yeah.
So yeah, it'd be lovely. But I don't begrudge
No,
people. I'm a
fair
little
enough.
bit, yeah,
Yeah,
I'm a nice person. I just,
yeah,
know,
yeah. One
get on
thing
with it.
One thing with podcasting that I find quite infuriating, this is just me being vulnerable now, is analytics on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, etc., etc., all the audio platforms. They are
Right.
completely hidden No one knows what Joe Rogan does. No one knows what Diary of a CEO does. They probably do a couple of million an episode. But
Right.
YouTube is completely transparent. Everything's public.
Mm,
All of your numbers, all of your views, all of your subscribers are all transparent. And I completely relate to what you're saying about this kingmaker system, where
mm.
someone is at the charts and they will literally stay at the top of the charts. And I just want to get on the bottom of the charts. I just want 97. That's like, do you know what I mean? It just,
Yeah, yeah.
ugh.
No, I agree
Yeah,
there, and
yeah,
I think it is unfair, and I think there is less snobbery now about being self-published um, than there used to be. I think people used to look down if you didn't have a publisher, you didn't have an agent. And I did send a couple of them initially to an agent, and one just said they had a similar
mm,
author on their books.
mm,
And then I just thought, well, I actually want to keep ownership of Alfie and Pepper. And I'd spoken to a couple of people who, and I certainly didn't want to go to the route, because some people go the route of going to one of these sort of hybrid publishing houses where you actually pay them. And I wouldn't go that route anyway, because that doesn't seem real. I'd rather pay for my own books to be done. Yes, it's nice to have hardbacks or whatever. I mean, I do have one hardback, but you have that control of your own destiny, if you like.
yeah,
And also, I do know somebody who is with a publisher, and she said you still have to do quite a bit of your own promotion,
yeah,
unless
yeah,
you are David Williams or somebody, and then you've got millions of followers or whatever.
yeah,
So she's not of that level. She is on TV quite a bit, but she said you still have to work quite hard, unless, as you say, you're one of the top
yeah,
five in a publishing house, then they're probably
completely.
falling all over you and going, "Yippee!"
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
But when you're down the food chain,
yeah,
like what I am,
yep,
then you have to really, get out there. But for me, yes, don't get me wrong, I want to be successful, and I feel that Alfie and Pepper and Mamie and the Mobile have a place in a child's life, and that's what I push for. And
yeah.
it may take. I think Julia Donaldson took 7 years.
Wow.
It's either 5 or 7.
Yeah,
And she
yeah,
started, a bit like me, started writing later in life. I mean, her books are brilliant. Um, and so I don't think she's going in the music business or anything. So I think she's going to stay in, so they don't have to worry about that. So she's staying as an author, but her books are fantastic. I read an
yeah,
article, I'm sure she took either 5 or 7 years to get people to, get there. And that is my aim, unless Steven Spielberg walks in now and says, I need a nearly 65-year-old woman to come and be in my next film, then,
yeah.
but I'd rather be known as a successful author, to be honest.
One of
Now
my
I would.
one of my favorite sayings is an overnight success usually takes 4 to 5 years.
Yes.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
very rare that what you do is going to catch fire immediately, you know. And also, there's
Yeah.
this weird paradox which I absolutely love. I love paradoxes, which is called the fascination life cycle, which is the longer it takes to make something, the longer it gets remembered. If you
Yeah.
make something in like 12 seconds, like a TikTok or a YouTube short or something, it gets immediately forgotten. The same amount of time that you put into creating it. And
Yeah.
I think, like, Steven Spielberg takes, 10 years to make a movie, or Quentin
Yeah.
Tarantino, takes 15 years. It's done when it's done. I'm not rushing it. It
Yeah.
will be out when it's got everything it needs to say, and then it kind of goes away for a bit. But it's always, in people's memory. So yeah, I love that. But yeah,
No, that's really interesting, actually. And I totally agree with you. And if I don't make it to the sort of, I don't need to be the top of the food pile, but it would nice to be, as you say, a few
yeah,
rungs up,
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
and just sort of on the coattails of these people that have,
Yeah, yeah,
a lot of people behind them. They have somebody doing their social media. They have
yeah,
somebody
yeah,
doing this, somebody doing that for them. I do everything. From the moment I wake up, I go through stuff. I sold 2 books on Saturday on Amazon. So, I
yeah.
check all of those things. It's not every day,
Hmm.
but there's a steady flow. I'm not ready to retire yet or anything
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that.
yeah,
So we'll
yeah,
just, I believe in my books, and I
yeah,
really have
yeah,
a strong sense of I'm not jumping on any bandwagon with them or any sort of preaching. They've got a tiny little life message in them. And most people like that. And I get some comments about those. They're not too onerous. Kids can deal with it. Yeah, I need to pick up after a picnic, or Mum, can I learn to swim? Alfie's had a wave over him. Little things like that. And if you can just get a little bit there. So yeah, we're on the run, Ben.
Yeah,
we're on the run.
That's it. We're the dogs chasing a rabbit.
That's right.
In terms of voiceover work, what
Yeah.
attracted you to that, and what still makes you want to do it, even outside of your own books? What makes that exciting for you?
Well, I think I mentioned earlier. I originally in 1977 I went to drama school. I did my first audition when I was 17, and at the time I didn't really understand it all. And my drama teacher said, "Oh, take it," because I think 300 people applied for 30 places, and it was in Birmingham. And it was fine, but in the 70s, very few agents came out. So I've always had a love of acting and things like that. And the voiceover work I have done. I've got a friend who works on some online radios and stuff, and he just asked me to do, and I did it for free, a radio ad, and he put some music to it, and even my husband didn't know it was me. So which was but I love creating characters, which is why I love doing Alfie and Pepper and giving them a character, because Alfie's the cheeky chappy. So he's sort of cheeky chappy like this.
Yeah.
Whereas Pepper is much more measured, and she's a Welsh Border Collie, and she knows everything. And Alfie says that, everything. Then there's a bulldog in the one where they move house. And again, the moving house one is aimed at children who do move house and the anxiety. But I'm not jumping, as I say, on all of the bandwagons. They're just nice, gentle stories. So I think for me, doing the voices is an extension of my acting.
Yeah.
And I'd love to do more voice work. I've done little bits. I've worked for a company. I did all their online voices for another country. The welcome and everything. So yes, always open to new voice work.
Oh yeah.
Happy to do that in my little studio here. I have no windows in my studio, so it's perfect.
No distractions.
No, other than the dog who seems to have disappeared. So my husband's probably tethered him down in the sitting room. So hopefully.
Yeah. Awesome. Do you have any questions for me? Anything you want?
So how old's your son?
10.
I'm allowed to ask that. 10.
Yeah.
So what sort of what type of books did you look for him when he was sort of a bit younger, and now what sort of does he go and at 10 would he go and find his own books, I assume?
Yeah, so he's got his own library card now, which I've got here. We've been reading a lot of Doctor Who.
Oh, brilliant! Yeah.
He started on the Gruffalo. Now we're at a stage of Diver Wimpy Kid. Nearly done all of them. I see him at weekends, so we try and sort of chew our way through a couple of chapters a weekend. There's other stuff, but my mind's gone blank. It's in the next room. He's got a lot of books. He likes a bit of visual rather than it just being text. But yeah, he seems to really enjoy it.
Oh, okay. And what books do you like?
Ooh.
You like your thriller man, or are you dark?
So, I bought a book this weekend just gone called Fourth Wing. My girlfriend has 3 bookcases, Sean. It's quite something. I'll send a picture in a bit. She's kind of steered me towards that. And also, I don't really have much of a work-life balance. So I tend to have a 20-minute lunch break out of an hour lunch break, which I'm allowed. I end up going back to work, and I'm going to stop doing that as of this week. And I'm going to read. And if people want to bother me whilst I'm reading, then I'll step out the office and I'll go and sit in a bench or something and read. But I've read a lot of biographies I've recently read a book which is short stories from Ireland, which is called Topographia Hibernica, which is by a podcaster called Blind Boy. So I'm quite into reading, but I find
And
myself.
do you read the book?
Yeah, the physical book. Yeah.
You read the book?
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. I was bought whatchamacallit, what are they called? Not an iPad, a
Kindle.
Kindle, that's the one. Kindle, see, and I downloaded 2 books. I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
I was like, no, I want a page. I want to feel. I want to smell my book. And I really couldn't get on. I know people swear by Kindles, but I mean, I swore the opposite way. I did not like a Kindle. And as I mentioned earlier, I have a lady I look after privately, and she likes me to read from a Kindle, and I find it quite difficult because you do this weird thing with the page. And I mean, I suppose I just find it a bit clinical, to be honest, a Kindle. And
it's got to be
I'm
haptic.
just trying to think.
It's got to be tactile. It's got to be tangible and real and paper, not just reading a book on my phone. Seems mad. Yeah, I don't get it.
Yeah. And throwing it back to you, my first question of the evening, how did you find school?
I quite enjoyed it. Looking back, I kind of wish that I'd confided a bit more to a clique. There was lots of sporty kids, lots of goth kids, lots of chavs, lots of people that didn't belong, and I was able to weave in between them. And I'd walk to school with a group of people, and then I'd walk home with another group of people. Whereas if I think back, then I might have kind of sided with the outsiders, who ironically are probably the coolest people because they're all kind of unclassified people, you know. But it was good in a way to move around and not necessarily play football all day every day until, you know. But yeah, I did quite enjoy it. I'm not as academic as I thought I would have been. I quite like being in a classroom and learning through talking and doing things haptically. But I just found it quite like if a question doesn't quite intrigue me, then I kind of tap out and I check out, and I then have to kind of win myself, or the teacher has to win me over and try and get me back on side, because otherwise the information just goes here and goes straight out. So yeah, it's not without its flaws being creative.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, but yeah, it was all right.
Well, that used to get me into trouble at school because I've still got my old reports, and they're thousands of years old, as you can imagine. But one of them says Shana's been a very naughty girl in the dormitory this term. And the reason is I used to tell stories in the dormitory to get the girls to go to sleep. And what we used to do is pick a pop star of the day, usually David Cassidy, so that shows how old I am, and pick one of the girls, and I used to tell a story around that. And the girls used to go to sleep, so I was actually doing a good thing. You try telling the nuns that. They weren't interested, and they used to come. We had one nun who was really good. She used to clap at the bottom of the stairs and then come up, so we all used to pretend to be asleep. But most of them, they used to come to the door and hear, as I was then, Sian James, and they used to open the door and they go, Sian James, out here. And I used to have to take the mattress off my bed, which wasn't very thick, onto the landing or into the bathroom. But I used to try and protest because I always like to stick up for myself. And I said, look, I'm doing a good job here. I probably was about 13, 14. And I said, I'm doing a good thing. I'm telling a story to the girls, not interested, and sort of not quite a clip round the ear, but told to go and sleep on the floor with my blankets and stuff and stay there. It would happen. And I never learned. I used to continue to tell the stories, and probably at least once a week or so used to get caught and put on the landing to sleep. So I was quite naughty at school, really, looking back. But I was a little bit rebellious, quite cheeky.
Yeah.
But then, you know, it's but yeah, so that's probably where my storytelling started, I think, at that age, you know, telling girls, you know, that they were going to marry David Cassidy or Donny Osmond or whoever it was at the time. So it's fun times. As I say, I'm still in touch with half a dozen of them. So we, have those fun memories of school. It's a strange thing because we used to obviously have day because you're actually staying at school for the night, whereas they all go home. So you are quite clingy as the boarders, if you like. So I assume you were at a day school.
Public school. Yeah. Different world.
Oh, bless you. Yeah, it's no, I think school. Mine certainly wasn't. It wasn't Enid Blyton and Mallory Towers either. So for those out there that know that genre of Enid Blyton.
Yeah. Awesome. So we've got 2 more questions, then I'm going to leave you to it.
Thank you.
I
didn't get in till 12:30. I was an extra in a film last night, so I'm a little bit tired. I got in at 12:30 this morning, which is late for me.
Yeah. It's all good. Do you believe in the paranormal, supernatural, any superstitions, or any ghosts / whatever is on YouTube these days where there's demons, there's banshees, there's poltergeists, there's all sorts of stuff on YouTube. You should check it out, Sean.
I've never checked it out. Well, strange enough, we live in quite an old cottage. It's about 1830, and there's several of our doors that don't close. We've tried, and the people that we bought from, her mother bought the house originally. It's called I can tell you, the old police house, and it's on my website anyway. And her mother hated doors being closed, and there's at least 2 or 3 doors that we cannot close properly. So I think there is something. And also quite often if I feel a bit kind of, very rare I feel down, but if occasionally I do, a song will come on the radio and I think, who's out there? Who knows? And it's one of my favourite songs or an uplifting song. And also the only thing I sort of believe in, there's a thing about robins.
Yeah.
And I have some of my dad's ashes in the garden. We've split him up because he lived all around the world, so I'm sure he wouldn't have minded. And so I do feel when I see a robin, I always say hello to the robin. Hopefully nobody's following me. I'll think I'm bonkers. Because I don't know. There's something. I can't believe we're just in this universe. Yeah, there is something. I'm quite a humanist, but there is something out there. Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, I do the magpie
Probably have
thing
strange dreams
rather than a robin thing.
Oh yes. Yeah, no, magpies as well. I always sort of like that, or salute. Some people salute at the magpie.
Yeah. How's your love and all that? Yeah. We are weird, aren't we? Us human beings, we are very superstitious, and we do blame a lot of things. Oh, I walked under a ladder earlier. That's why I got a bad performance review at work. And it's like, what? There's 2 things don't exist.
I know they don't. Not at all. But yeah, I think there is something. I can't work out. But just before my dad died, I said, well, can you come back if it's let us know what's happening, because he knew he was dying. And I cut his beard, put some aftershave on. I said, right, you ready to go and meet my mother? And I said, come back. He said, yeah. I mean, he was a priest as well, so it sort of, he said he was going to put an ace of spades on his coffin, see if he came up trumps. That was his passing comment.
Love that.
Yeah, he was quite flamboyant. So
yeah. 2 more questions. We've got 9 minutes. Plans for the future? Anything you want to plug?
Anything? Well, obviously, please visit Alfie and Pepper. I'm a little bit behind with I'm not very good at internet stuff. And I need to update my website, and I need a bit of help. I usually get help, so I'm not very good at putting my books on. But yeah, Alfie and Pepper, The Adventures of Alfie and Pepper. All 7 of the stories are on YouTube, so you can read along to them with your children, or if you need. They're only 6 minutes long, so if you need your children to be entertained for 6 minutes. We've got Mamie and the Mobile out. So there's a slight difference in size, so that's the difference.
Yep.
So we've gone for something quite different. And just saying, Alex, he's done this one online, so it's quite a different look. But I love it. And so you've
Yeah.
got her little toy animals there and the real ones there.
Mhm.
And the next book will be out. I'm hoping May, June, probably in July, and that will be Mamie and the Mobile Dinosaurs.
Fantastic.
As we discussed earlier, any animators or anybody wants to collaborate
Mhm.
or get something we can give to one of the TV stations or something to say, this is what you need. You need
Yep.
nice, calming children's stories. Because I think there's a lot of thing at the moment. And I know Sue Atkins, who runs our book club online and does a lot on TV, there's quite a push at the moment to get kids to reduce their screen time. And
Yeah.
in fact, there was a thing on the news tonight about eyesight
Right.
and saying because they're I think it's short-sighted, or I'm never sure which one it is, but
Yeah.
apparently because they have so much screen time, instead of needing glasses at usually 12, they're 5 and 6, and they're not going out enough either.
Yeah.
So long-term plans, I've got about 2 years till I retire.
Mhm.
So my plans now are to write the next 2 Alfie and Pepper, which are, I say write, get them published because they are actually written. So I'll have Alfie and Pepper meet the snowman at Christmas, and then the original one I wrote in 2012, Alfie and Pepper go to the vets because they've
Yep.
just moved house. So that will be next year, and then I may think about my adult book. So and I work part-time as a home carer, about
Yeah.
20 hours a week to keep me sane and level,
Yep.
and get out to California. My son lives in California, so I've just been to my daughter in Australia. Not sure what I did with my kids, but they've both gone like that. And yeah, just be healthy. I have checks every 6 months, and you cannot buy. It's one thing you cannot buy is your health. So keep healthy, keep fitter,
Mhm.
and those are I think they're very simple. And to try and be an even more successful author in 2024.
Yeah. Love that. Have you enjoyed being on Absolute Bedlam podcast?
I've loved it. It's my first. I'm a virgin in that respect
Yeah.
of podcasting. I have
Yeah.
not done it before, so I've broken that duck. But no, it's been lovely. Been very great to be with as my first and second, because we kind of done a 2 thing.
Yep.
So yeah, so I'll have to have a look. I did a tiny bit on BBC Radio Leicester. And I enjoyed that, and that was it wasn't actually face to face because it was just at the end of lockdown. So I've done a tiny bit, but never podcasting before. So
Yeah.
you just got to be yourself, really, and just you get found out in the end if you're not.
Yep. If you're putting out an hour and 20 every 2 weeks, people are eventually going to figure out who you are, and the mask will slip. Definitely.
Absolutely, yeah.
Best person you can be is yourself.
No,
That's it.
absolutely, yeah.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to leave you to it because it sounds like you had a bit of a
Thank you.
crazy night last night. So check out The Adventures of Alfie and Pepper. Also check out Mamie and the Mobile. Was that correct?
In the mobile,
In the mobile.
in the mobile, because I'm
Yep.
in it. Yeah.
And Shan is available at, is it Shani59 at hotmail.com?
That's my email address.
Yep. So if people are interested in animation for Shan.
Yeah. If anybody wants to, I think, just contact me, or all my
Yep.
Instagram and everything are open. So just send me a message.
Yep. Sorry, it's not
and-
going quite
and-
as well as I thought. Yeah.
Yeah.
We've got,
No, just I'm on all of them, and or you can contact me on the website as well.
Yep.
Don't get many on that, but yeah, just send me a message or whatever you want, and hopefully we'll get Alfie and Pepper out there. I mean, several people have said to me this should be on the BBC, but
yeah.
you can't get on there that easy. It's not like you open the door and go, "Hi, can I come in?"
Yeah.
So we'll just have to see. When you watch things like when my kids were small, Evil the Engine and things like that, it's kids need that quieter time as well as the shouty and whatever.
Yeah.
They need a bit of both, really.
Absolutely.
Balance. That's what we need. Balance. Yeah.
We'll get you
but
on
I
CBBS.
really appreciate. Yeah.
Get you on
we need to
bedtime
be
hour.
on there, but yes, because if you listen to my stories, my voice is a little bit lighter because it's quite a deep voice.
Yeah.
So Alfie and Pepper are fast asleep in their beds. So I can say it's good night from Shan and sleep well.
There we
So
go.
it's, but thank you so much for having me
It's
on.
all right.
Really
It's all
enjoyed
good.
it.
No worries. Check
Yeah.
out Sean, guys, and
Hopefully
thanks for.
nobody's gone to sleep.
Yeah. I used to get that a lot a couple of years back when I started doing this. I always fall asleep to your podcast. I'm like, cheers, I think. Thanks for the stat, but yeah, I'll take it, whatever. But yeah, this has been great. It's been lovely meeting you, and I hope that
Yes.
this just continues to get better and better. And yeah,
Thank you
awesome.
so much, Ben. Well,
All
we'll
good.
continue to follow each other and
Yep.
support each other. And that's the thing. We
That's
need
it.
to do that, a bit more support across the
Rise,
lower rungs where we
rise
are.
together.
Yeah, I'll be on your coattails.
Yeah. All good. Right. Cheers for watching,
Yeah, take
listening,
care.
viewing, subscribing, and all that stuff. And we'll see you in the next one. All right, guys. Cheers.
Absolute Bedlam.
Hey guys, it's John here from Absolute Bedlam. We just wanted to take a moment to introduce you to our brand new Patreon. If you head over to Patreon now, you can get access to behind the scenes footage, ad-free content and episodes. You can even send your own requests in terms of the content you would like to see us create. All of this is available to you and more. We've got free options available to you as a patron with us. If you just want to support what we do and help build the Absolute Bedlam experience, a small fee of £1 a month, you can do just that. If you want to get access to that ad-free content, those ad-free episodes, for £5 a month, you can join the Hive. And if you want all of that and more behind the scenes footage, commission works with us, live Q&A sessions, for £10 a month, all of the madness, all of the chaos of Absolute Bedlam will be yours. So head over to Patreon now, become a patron, and join the Hive.
Absolute Bedlam podcast. Who? What? Where? Why?